What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
This week, we're straight into the midweek episode because at the start of the week, I lost my voice.
Yeah. Obviously, Easter weekend was way too happening for you, really. too much talking.
Too much what, Terrence? Too much what? Too much
reveling in the joy of Easter, basically.
I see. I mean, like the last time I lost my voice was around the wedding back in December. I don't think I've ever lost my voice that often in my life. So
it's telling, right?
What's telling?
Like all these supposedly very happy occasions in your life, you end up losing your voice. So I mean,
it's telling me what? What is that telling me, Terrence?
No, telling you that you have way too much fun at all these occasions, right? Your wedding and Easter weekend also.
Way too much fun, but I have fun at a lot of other things. But I never lose my voice then.
Yeah, just not as much as this, right? For sure.
I guess that's one way to look at it. But yeah, I had a cough and a sore throat a bit last week. Then suddenly Saturday, we even went down, we did our Folklory pop-up, which was fine. Then Saturday night, when talking to my wife, I was like, ooh, my voice is gone. My voice is gone.
Just like that.
So Monday it was still recovering. And now I think my voice still sounds a bit different, right?
Yeah, it does. In fact, you sounded
huskier.
You sounded very sad on calls, over the phone and on calls on Monday. Like you've been crying the whole weekend or something. Maybe that's it, because it was also Good Friday, so you also were feeling very sad. That's why also.
I don't know what you're getting at, Terrence. I don't know what you're getting at. It's just because when I lose my voice,
the occasion overwhelms you, right?
Just shut up, Terrence. Okay, just shut up. And the reason why it sounded sad on the phone was because when you lose your voice, you don't want to strain it, So then I just start talking like Terrence. So what's the update on that project and all? So then I sound sad.
Yeah. It did sound
so
sad.
Be it, man.
Yeah, but it was okay because I think thankfully we had over the weekend we had Seoul Ryong's podcast come out, right? So I think that was a very quite exciting podcast for people to sink their teeth into on Monday, Tuesday. But yeah, gotta get back to regular programming, man.
We're back, man, and we're back. And I mean, today's podcast is interesting to say the least. Yeah. It feels like today the news we were doing this research, some fucking weird articles out there, man.
Yeah.
Weird ass shit happening abroad and in Singapore.
Yeah.
So
correct.
we selected two.
Yeah.
But before that, anything you want to say, Terrence?
I think as always, if you're new to this podcast especially, to help us out, leave a review of this podcast wherever you listen to it, whether it's on Apple or Spotify or other platforms, because that will go a long way in helping people discover this podcast as well, and share the love, basically.
Share the love, man. Share the love. Sweet, man. Are you going to segue with that on that note?
I know. I was just saying, yes, it's important to share the love, but sometimes it can be a little bit too much as well, whatever your intention was, as demonstrated by this first public figure. What has happened to this public figure in the last 48 hours, I believe, right?
Yes. Last 48 hours. So I mean, essentially, a video of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, went viral, and it basically showed an interaction with him and a young man at an event that happened, I think, about a month or two ago.
A child, not a young man, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. It happened on February 28th, in a suburb of Dharamshala, which is where the Dalai Lama lives. There were about 100 school students present at the event. It was organized at a temple, and one of the students there asked the Dalai Lama on microphone if he can hug him. So the Dalai Lama said, yes, come to the platform. And then they hugged. And then the Dalai Lama planted a kiss on the boy's lips as the boy leaned in to pay his respects. And the Dalai Lama stuck out his tongue, placed his forehead against the boy's, and asked the child to suck his tongue. And I mean, whatever videos you see online, the kid's face is blurred out, understandably so. And it did have a light-hearted tone. People in the audience were giggling, the Dalai Lama was giggling. Not so sure about the boy, but in the end, I don't think the boy sucked his tongue. The boy stuck out his tongue apparently, but there was no sucking involved. And that happened back on February 28th. Then it recently went viral, and there's a whole lot of reactions to the video. And the Dalai Lama himself, or at least his Twitter account, has come out with a statement, just saying that he regrets what he did. He would like to apologize to the family, the kids, but also with a little bit of a note saying that he often teases whoever he meets in whatever interactions. So that was the statement that was put out as a screenshot on his account, on his Twitter account. So that's where we're at. And
I mean, I think the interesting thing to add is that a lot of the reactions, especially on Twitter, if you just look at his Twitter account and that post in particular, are basically just going outright and saying pedophile. They need to investigate what goes on behind closed doors. This is horrible. It's called grooming. So the reactions are quite extreme, really, from what the Dalai Lama himself has characterized as playful behavior and merely words that could have hurt the boy and his family and his friends. People are going to the extreme of just basically saying that calling him a pedophile and all already, which is not especially as a religious figurehead. It's not a very nice thing to have hanging over your head. But I don't know, have you seen a lot of other kinds of reactions that don't veer towards that extreme of calling him a pedophile?
I've seen one video on YouTube, a Tibetan lawmaker, who says that this is just a light-hearted play with a young child, just like how many people do play with children innocently, and there's no malice or no hidden agenda there. So let's not overblow the topic. But by and large, the reactions have been along the lines of like, what the fuck? Right? So before we dive into that, what was your impression of the Dalai Lama up till that point?
I think because the context is he's a spiritual leader seen as a spiritual leader of the Buddhism faith amongst Tibetan people, right? And largely he's known for having lived in self-exile in India following the China's annexation of annexing Tibet, right? So I think he was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize like in the 80s, and so he's generally been seen as a very unifying figure, a very respected unifying figure, who has stood up to the powers that be, and has devoted his life to pursuing spirituality. He's not married, he's got no kids and everything. So that was since he was 2 years old when he was identified as the reincarnation of the last Dalai Lama as well, right? So those are the, if you look up fun facts about Dalai Lama, those are probably what you'll find out, and that's the general impression of him, at least. But for you, how about you? Do you have any deeper impressions of him?
He always struck me as like a good bridge between like a religion or tradition and the more modern world, like both in terms of society and technology and culture. Because like what you said, he's been around for a super long time. He was born in 1935, and by 1940 he was the spiritual leader and head of the country of Tibet. And then he took he formally took over when he was 15 in 1950. So his reign essentially as the Dalai Lama has been from 1940 till now, which is very, very long time. And I mean, sorry, at 1950, at the age of 15, he was already kind of like designated as the Dalai Lama, but he assumed political duties when he was 15. So up till then, yeah, he was the figurehead lah. So I mean, he's been around for so long, and I think everyone has probably seen an interview or two where he's talking with like people like John Oliver or some of the more popular people in entertainment culture. And he always struck me as someone who was eloquent, who had a sense of humor, who was not like this outdated religious figure where you're like, okay, this guy lives in a different world. He lives in the current world. And I feel like he was keeping up with the times, like even though he's had his controversies in the past. Yeah. I think once when he said if there was a woman who succeeds him, she needs to be attractive. That happened in 2019. He got a lot of backlash for that.
Yeah.
He made comments about India and Pakistan previously, got in trouble for that. So yeah. But then, I don't know, when I see this video, right, I'm like, walao, I know our podcast is called Yalabat, but what is the butt? What is the butt? I cannot see a butt. I cannot see a butt.
Yeah. Tough lah. I mean, for me as a parent, especially as a parent now, your young children, you realize how, I mean, and maybe that's something you forget as an adult, You think that, certain things are so obvious and you kind of forget what it's like to be a child, to see the world around you as this big place full of promise, but you might not even be aware of the dangers around you, right? But as an adult, I think you are more cognizant of that. And but you see, for better or worse, that children approach the world with this openness and this like innocence that can be very quickly taken from them by bad actors and all that, right? So yeah, it's as a parent, like I'm just thinking if anybody said that kind of thing to my child, right? Like suck my tongue or something like that, there would be chaos, bedlam, right? I will flip out, right? Because it's just something. It's one of those things that even if it's just meant to be playful or what, it's just really uncalled for. And even if it doesn't result in the child being traumatized, okay, if we say, okay, let's not go down a slippery slope, the child being traumatized, it was just playful behavior. There's still a lot of explaining to do to the child about like why certain behaviors are inappropriate and things like that, right? Because I think some people have rightfully pointed out, whatever your intentions are, the action itself is not very appropriate, right? Asking someone, especially a minor, to suck on your tongue, right? So yeah, you can say what your intentions are, but the action that was done was could be hurtful, and that's where I wouldn't jump out and say, oh, he's a pedophile, but I would say that it's a very unfortunate thing that he did, especially in front of cameras as well, yeah.
But apparently, okay, so one thing unique to Tibetan folklore or Tibetan culture is that sticking out your tongue, it's seen like not disrespectful like it is in a lot of countries. Like in Singapore, if I go on the street and I stick out my tongue at someone, they'll be like, hey, like what are you doing, like, And we grew up with that, like little stick your tongue out as an insult or sign of disrespect, lah. But apparently in Tibet, there is this culture where it's seen to be like a greeting, sticking out your tongue. And the reason is it dates back to somewhere along the 9th century when the Tibetan king Lang Dharma, who at that point in time was famous for his cruelty, he was said to have a black tongue. So after he died, Tibetans used to stick out their tongue to show that they are not a reincarnation of him. So then it kind of evolved as part of a traditional greeting to stick the tongue out, lah. But the tradition is not to suck tongues; it is to stick your tongue out. Okay, so that's a big difference. But so another thing is he's 87, no, Terrence. I'm sure everyone has had a 87-year-old uncle who said some dumbass shit. That you're like, okay lah, he's 87, call it a different time, call it like a aging mental capacity. I don't know. Like, is there any sliver of a yalla butt there?
There is. There is. I think I saw a video. I'm not sure if the same one that you saw of, I think he's Tibetan. Someone who put out a video saying that it really was nothing more than a playful interaction between a respected elder and a child. In the sense that, the guy was saying that, in Tibet, growing up, putting your forehead together with an adult is a sign of respect and a sign of affection. Kissing on the lips, between the adult and the child also is a sign of respect and a sign of affection. So it is very, very, very common in Tibetan culture to do that. And then to your point, sticking out the tongue is also much more common in Tibetan culture. I don't know whether it's a sign of respect or a greeting or what, but it's done more commonly, right, than in other parts of the world. So you combine all that together with the fact that essentially it's an elder, when you play with a child, then there's an escalation of of things that you're playing with, right? You say, oh, you touch my forehead. Oh, okay. Touch my nose. Okay. Kiss me on the lips. Okay. Then what's left? Nothing left. Oh, I stick out my tongue. You ask him to suck the tongue. So that was the explanation for why if a Tibetan person sees that, it will seem like a completely normal interaction between the elder and the boy, right? And yeah, I do see that as a possibility, but just a couple of things. One is the boy is not Tibetan, right? I mean, I think he's from India, and I think he doesn't speak the same language as the same native language as the Dalai Lama himself, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, the sucking on my tongue, suck on the tongue, maybe is the unfortunate use of a word, because I think that from what I was watching the video, he's saying that it's just a playful thing on eat my tongue, like you would say to the 90s kids. Last time is Bart Simpson would say, eat my shorts, that kind of thing, right? There's nothing, there's nothing sexual about telling someone, eat my shorts, or kiss my ass, that kind of thing. Nothing sexual about it. If anything, it's to insult them and make fun of them, right?
Yeah.
So in some ways, they said that this was just an escalation of an old man playing with affectionately with a young boy, and maybe the term "suck my tongue" was the wrong verb to use. Like if more appropriately, it would have been "eat my tongue" or something, So that is what the butt in the yala butt would be lah. And then I mean the video goes on to purport a lot of why is it that the video, it was live streamed in February, and then only now, like a month later, it has been cut up to, to be out there in the world and to suddenly raise a ruckus about him. And he goes into some political conspiracy about like why this is happening at this point in time lah. I mean, but that all aside, is I think like a lot of people, I'm just looking at this exchange between the Dalai Lama and the boy, and that's why I feel like it's hard to defend lah. It's very hard to defend for anyone outside the world, and even hearing the Tibetan person making the argument, it felt a bit like you're being an apologist a little bit for his behavior. Because again, like I say, if it was anyone else who said this kind of thing to some random young boy or what, the guy would probably be like, beaten on the curb or arrested or something in any other country, right? But because this is Dalai Lama, it seems like people are making up a lot of excuses for their behavior, and taking his word that it was nothing but purely a playful interaction. Yeah.
Was one of the reasons that the guy put forth something to do with the Chinese Communist Party and how they are trying to cause this ruckus to discredit his leadership?
Possibly. Yeah,
because I saw that somewhere also.
Yeah. I mean, it's so complicated. I didn't really go deep into it lah. But do you what do you make? What sense could you make of that whole thing?
I mean, it's trying to find reasons. I also saw some claims that the videos being shared by Western media are cut up in a way to, focus on the lingering gaze of the Dalai Lama on the child and all that. But if you look at the full live stream one, it's less incriminating lah. But then, like you also, when either way, right, it's just weird lah. It's just weird watching it. And I've been trying to ask, like, when I watch it, is it weird because of, now everyone is more conscious with like minors and stuff like that? Yeah, I think that is a thing. Maybe 10 years ago, not to say that, I used to think it was okay for pedophiles last time,
Yeah.
but now I think everyone is
Yeah.
more aware, lah, right? So
More aware, yeah, and also like, yeah, we know what the pedophiles, how pedophiles disarm children, right, so to speak.
yeah,
How they prey on them, how it starts with very innocent questions and starts with very innocent observations about their appearance and things like that. That's why I think we're all just much more aware of these kind of things already, lah.
yeah. So I mean, along those lines, right? Like, not to say that he has pedophilic tendencies or anything, but I think in this day and age, one thing that I always appreciated about him was that he seemed like what I said earlier, like he's keeping with the times. He understands the cultural nuances and social norms that have evolved over time, which is very admirable. Like, he's 87 years old now. So for someone who is as globally known as that, who has rubbed shoulders with almost like so many famous people in the world, held his own in thousands of interviews, to do that makes me think like, hey, is he not aware that there's a global lens or magnifying glass on shit like this, lah? So even if he's totally innocent, it just doesn't look good. And to the icing on the cake is that he's a spiritual leader, lah, who is also tied to a religion. And I think that's where it gets tricky, because certain religions, like I think we've done a few podcasts on like the Catholic Church in Singapore, covering up certain deeds that is a sore topic that everyone is aware of. And it just paints that religion a certain way, lah.
Yeah.
Which is unfair to the people in those religions who don't do any terrible shit. But now you look at it, it's like the Dalai Lama last time, he used to be like almost like untainted, lah. Or at least like when you make stupid comments, when it involves a child, right, it's really no coming back, lah.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing, lah. Like all his previous incidences, like you mentioned, I can pass those off as, he's an 87-year-old uncle, so maybe a little bit out of touch with how younger people are talking and all that. But when you see the action of someone like almost like pulling a kid towards him, kissing him on the lips in full view of the public, even the mother sitting there, right there. Actually, you literally see her sitting there in the video also, apparently. The whole thing, and because he's such a respected, powerful figure, there's just this whole like the narrative of their power imbalance will surely come and haunt him, right? So if anything, if I was him or the people around him, and then when the boy come and ask for a hug, I would have stepped in, restricted. Okay, one hug only, one hug and nothing more.
But
that's
it. Do is a hug, what?
yeah. So just a hug and nothing more. The problem was that they lingered. They lingered head to head, and then the kiss on the lips, everything. Someone should have just stepped in. Okay, enough. Go back downstairs, please. No more.
So next time if I see your kid, I'm only entitled to one hug. Is it?
Hug also depends. Hug depends. Yeah. Just you see, even for kids also, a lot of times you tell them, just because you tell them to hug or what, they won't necessarily come and hug you either, right? So that's where him being such a powerful figure, then the visual of him like almost like pulling the boy towards him, squeezing his cheeks and everything, and then kissing on the lips and all already lah. When the boy already seemed a bit hesitant about it, that's where as a parent I would feel like, hey, that's quite the kid looks doesn't not say distressed, but doesn't know how to react to this. And then before you proceed any further, then we should explain to him this is what they do in their culture, or Tibetans do in their culture, and maybe that's why you feel like it's like, but there wasn't that opportunity obviously.
Because I guess so I mean the thing about it almost makes anyone look back on aspects of the Tibetan culture with a negative lens, unfortunately. Because I mean, I've seen some people say, if this happens in public, what happens in private? And I don't think there's ever been any talk of like the monasteries in Tibet and all having these kind of things going on in the background. But now there's that and I mean, it does tarnish it, but I also wonder how long this will last. Because I mean, recently in Singapore, I won't name the person, but a certain public figure has appeared on social media once again, who had some offenses involving minors, lah. Right? He's begun posting again, wanting to share his side of the story. And he just blows my mind how people have been reacting to him. I mean, I'll just say it like it's Dikosh, lah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not to say that I'm dragging him in for this, but just watching that and how people have been reacting so positively to him, wanting to share his side of the story, I mean, I think second chances should be given to everyone, but I've just been surprised by how people have been reacting to his approach, where he's talking about sharing his side of the story after having gone to jail after being convicted of a crime involving minors.
Yeah.
So that's where, and no way am I comparing him to the Dalai Lama, but I'm just saying that is the thing about of public figures and celebrities and people who are revered, which I mean, can you imagine if we went like fucking the primary school talks we have given and all, we just ask kids to suck our tongue, we'd be arrested. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, even for us, even production and all, anytime there's a kid involved, like for She's a Terrorist series, there was a young kid, kid actress, very, very, very good actress that worked quite closely alongside you and all that, right? And like we would mandate that the mother or a caretaker must be there throughout the time of the filming. Because we know these things are very sensitive for children, and then we were doing what was considered an adult series, right? So we took great pains to make sure that even the place where the kid rested and all that, there weren't all these scary like terrorist propaganda or the sex toys and all that were in the nearby the vicinity, it was just something that we're just very conscious of, and I feel like there's just how things are today, where people are much more aware and conscious of these things, and we have to maintain these standards if we want to continue directing, want to continue producing things as well. So like what you said, if for the Dalai Lama, I mean, he's got a whole entourage of people that probably should have and could have stepped in at some point to prevent this from escalating, lah.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember when we were on set, because there was one character who played by Noah who worked in a sex shop, right?
Yeah.
So inevitably on set there were a lot of sex toys, including sex dolls and dildos. And I remember having conversations with like the props person saying, "Okay, we're gonna shoot the scene with the child here. How long will it take to move all the dildos out? And then after the scene finished, how long will it take to move the dildos back in?" And just those sort of things, and we were very upfront with the mom saying, "Okay, auntie, there's going to be dildos in the background. Are you comfortable with that for your child?" And so I guess to anyone who is holding the title of a spiritual leader around the world who just happens to listen to this, please take note that you also have to up your game,
And any interactions with kids and all, you just have to be super conscious about it, lah. I'm not even saying as a spiritual leader or public figure, even as a parent, when I'm around other kids, even without their parents around, when around other kids, I am super careful with what I say or how I phrase it and things, because I know that I even just as a consideration factor, I don't want to leave the burden of having to explain something to the another parent and their child, by saying something wrong or saying something inappropriate, then later they bring that home to their parent, and the parent has to think about how to explain it to them and all. So it's very dicey when you're dealing with kids. Yeah.
Oh, at the rate things are going, maybe it needs to be a subject also for young kids, how to deal with sexual predators. When we were young, we were like, don't speak to strangers,
Yeah.
Now
Correct.
it's like, don't suck the tongues of strangers.
People ask you to suck tongue, even powerful people ask you to suck tongue. Say no.
Yeah, correct. If someone asks you to suck their tongue, just say no. Okay, it's general practice. Yeah, last time, don't speak to strangers.
Yeah. Boundaries, teaching boundaries, not easy, man. It's not an easy thing to teach children, because they are basically at the phase of their life when they're just they're absorbing everything, and they put a lot of trust in the figures of authority around them,
Yes.
So yes,
weird.
That's a tough one. But speaking of boundaries, we come back closer to where we are in Singapore, but not in Singapore. Still in Korea itself, where a Singaporean has caused a bit of a stir online, right? I don't know whether the online community in Korea or just on Twitch or in Singapore. But yeah, this particular Twitch streamer has caused a bit of a ruckus in Seoul, Korea. And what is this incident that she has caused there?
So it's a Twitch streamer who goes by the name of Kiaraakitty. And I mean, she's got 507,000 followers on Twitch, right? So she was streaming like real time in Korea. And suddenly during the live stream, there's a police officer that comes up next to her and tells her to stop. And apparently someone had reported to the police for Kiara having her boobs out, and I say that in air quotes because she is wearing something very low cut and not to say you can see her full boobs, you can see a lot of cleavage So then she passed the police her identity card and all that and she is wearing something that is somewhat revealing, right? You on the streets with the cleavage popping out like that. So that has caused a stir because I mean she's got a lot of followers and she was posting on TikTok and all that. She got stopped by two cops in Seoul for having her boobs out. So Terence, why did you want to talk about this?
I think it's I don't know. I just find it quite interesting that we're talking about this because if you really like Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media platform where you get fed videos, right? A lot of times I realize I just been fed a lot of like K-pop dancing kind of videos, right? From K-pop stars and all. And I would say, yeah, they're usually dressed very skimpily, dressed in very small miniskirt kind of outfits and things like that. And that's all like celebrated and it's a big part of K-pop culture and all that, right? Like bands like Blackpink and all. So it was quite surprising for me that there's this that a Twitch streamer from Singapore who she's not wearing underwear, right? She's definitely wearing something provocative, but it's not underwear either. You could argue that it's just a different type of fashion, right? I was just quite surprised that she would get stopped by the police from a place like Korea, in a place like Korea. We're not talking about like a very socially conservative kind of town or city or in the outskirts of Korea or anything like that. We're talking about Seoul itself, right? Cultural capital of the country and all. So yeah, it was just quite a surprising thing for me, But for you, why were you so excited to talk about this?
Let's be clear, you were the one who suggested this as a topic that we voted on.
Yeah.
But I did give it a high score in terms of this is interesting. I mean, it's just like on one hand, 10 years ago, Singapore was known for a very narrow scope of things globally, caning and emotionless and a lot of rules. But feels like now every other week some Singaporean is in the international news. A few weeks ago for testifying against Congress. And then now for wearing something that shows your cleavage on the streets of Seoul. On one hand, I think it's cool that now people know Singapore is not just one-dimensional. We have a whole range of people. But then also in this sort of case, it did strike me as Seoul. I mean, I'm confused about Korea, South Korea and Seoul in general. I haven't been there, which is what I wanted to ask you also. But like what you said, right? Certain on YouTube, I also sometimes chance upon these fan cams of like K-pop singers, and the way they dance, it really looks like they're having sex on stage with clothes, And it's almost there's a certain of course that's a K-pop star, and all that. But on the streets of Seoul, feels like, this reminds me kind of like Singapore. we think of ourselves as progressive, liberal, but you have some people who are very, very conservative, lah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, what was your experience in Seoul? Because you went there earlier this year or late last year?
Yeah. Early this year.
Early this year, yeah. Does it
I went,
jive? Yeah.
but one thing is that I went smack in the middle of like one of the, like
winter.
a very, very cold winter. So everyone, I would say 99% of people are bundled up, and you're not going to see people revealing a lot of skin. There literally was snowstorms when I was there, okay. So that's one thing. But the other thing I realized about that I also observed about Korea is that fashion, fashion and branded goods and sneakers, all these things are a very, very big part of their culture. So if you're very interested in any of those things, especially sneakers, Korea is quite fun because they had a lot of huge sneaker outlets and all that. And it seems like everyone is into buying all these things. And I'm saying that even compared to like Japan, which I feel Japan is like its own animal in terms of like it's on the extremes, like it's either very, very conservative kind of dressing or very, very extreme, right? Whereas in Korea, I would say the mainstream is that people are very, very into fashion, into chasing, into brands, into dressing up and looking cool and all that, right? So yeah, it is quite jarring when you see that. You never realize that they could be so socially conservative as well, but that also brings me to like what I think what we fail to realize is that maybe the people or society has progressed a certain way, but the laws and the institutions will take some time to catch up, right? And you must admit that Korea's surge in the soft power, in gaining soft power around the world, in becoming influential in pop culture and all that, has really only happened in the last 20 to 30 years, right? And that's in the larger scheme of things, that's a very short amount of time. So maybe the laws for public decency or nudity or whatever haven't caught up yet. So I think in this instance of Kiaraakitty, it's like as long as there's a complaint from a member of the public to the police about what she's wearing, they have to go investigate it, right? And ultimately, they let her. I think they let her off, right? They didn't arrest her or anything. They let her off with a warning or something.
So I mean, based on her Twitter account, she went down to the station for questioning because a report was made that she was fully naked.
Yeah.
So in some way, it's a false report, and this is coming straight from her own Twitter account.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah. To finish my point is that, yeah. So I mean, the police are just doing their job in a place where they have no choice but to go and report or investigate these things because a member of the public complained about it, and there's a law. I think there's a law against public indecency, lah. So in Singapore, we also have the same similar kind of approach to things. Like if a member of the public complains about something, I think the police are obligated to go investigate and go and question and all that, right? So I don't think it's directly saying that Korea is such a, Korean society is so uptight, it's so strict on it. But it's really just about the institutions that maybe haven't caught up with the times yet, lah.
Because if we look at this and we're like, oh, Seoul is so conservative, then we're doing exactly what people were doing to Singapore years ago. Right, you see this one incident and you extrapolate it. And I mean, just to give context, I think this is probably a great thing for Kiaraakitty. I mean, if you just Google her name, there's a bunch of stuff that she got famous for. I think at one point she was selling her own farts in a jar for $30.
Yeah, exactly.
So also understanding that that is the context of the world that she lives in. Not to say that she called the police on her own. It might just be someone, but I think for me the most interesting thing was this is another Singaporean in international news. I mean, I don't think she's breaking the law wearing what she's wearing. Because I saw some people saying, when you got to respect the laws of the country you go in. But I don't think it's breaking the law. So I mean, she has had surgical implants, so her cleavage it is big,
Yeah.
So
I mean, this kind of reminds me of that time. Remember when there was literally a cosplay event at Suntec City?
Yeah.
Many years ago. And I think one of the cosplayers' costumes showed under boob, the bottom side of the boob. And I think because it was a Sunday and there happened to be a church service in the same building at the same time, they encountered each other. These two groups encountered each other within the expo halls of the Suntec City, and someone called the police on the cosplayer, saying that it's public indecency and everything, showing the underboob. So I can't remember what happened there at the end, but it shows you that what's public indecency for one group can just be, it's just fashion for another, and these kind of things happen anywhere around the world.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's just I mean, we've also done a video at a cosplay convention way before, right?
Yeah.
Way back. And yeah, this topic was just something like I can't imagine people having very strong opinions against what they wore, because even the example you brought up, it was just one or two people who felt that way, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's just one or two.
Yeah. So it's just man, the news these days. And I mean, like I mentioned today earlier, that the news today was just weird because even in Singapore, there's another case of a guy apparently fucking a cat. Like, what the hell is going on, man?
Yeah, what the heck is going on in Singapore?
What the hell is going on? But that topic is really like no point even talking about. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. What a past few days. Yeah, so just weird ass times, but I think now it's time to move on to our one Shiok comment of the past few days, man.
Yes.
And do you have one Shiok comment?
I think my one Shiok comment is actually on Facebook when our last guest, So Ryong himself, shared our podcast, and he basically extracted something that I mentioned as part of the podcast to talk about to talk about his podcast, saying that my return to the Singapore SEA Games team has been dubbed the return of the prodigal son by Yalabat, and likened to Cristiano Ronaldo's return to Manchester United. I hope my return will be much better fated. Full podcast here, enjoy. So I just found it pretty funny that he pulled out that part as like the intro in terms of describing our podcast, that he is like Cristiano Ronaldo going back to Manchester United. But he is unique to say the least.
He's an eternal optimist, eternal optimist.
Yeah. But at least there is some self-awareness there that, Cristiano Ronaldo's return to Manchester United also ended quite spectacularly as well. So yeah, just have to be careful also.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
And you, what's your one Shiok comment?
So my one Shiok comment was okay, so my one Shiok comment was along the lines of like how does a podcast make stable income in Singapore, which was a collaboration we did with the Financial Coconut. It was shared on our Reddit by Jungle Jimbo 88, long time commenter, and I mean, even heard from Bud Den Ho. I guess it's nice that with Yalabat, we've done a few podcasts with the Financial Coconut, and it resonates with at least some of our listeners, which is cool because we also don't want it to be like we appear on other podcasts and it's still not something that our listeners enjoy. So when they shared it here, I was like, oh, that's cool. I appreciate people like keeping a lookout for stuff where we go on and talk, because I mean, there is going to be another podcast where we appear on another big podcast in Singapore coming out soon. So yeah, so thanks for giving that a shot.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, cool.
And what is your one Shiok thing?
My one Shiok thing is an article that a good friend shared with me after a recent episode we did about the habits of people when they pee and how much how my observation was that I don't understand how people can pee with just one hand. Even though someone pointed out on Reddit that I should stop looking at people pee and how they pee. I don't intentionally look at their pee, okay? It's just in the vicinity. When I can see them using their phone, by simple subtraction, I can ascertain that there's only one hand guarding the pee process. So there was an article that a good friend shared called The Splashback Scandal, and whether should all men sit down to urinate. And it just goes into detail about how just by peeing into water or like a urinal, there is a lot of splashback. There's a lot of germs that go into the air, and it's just something that maybe we should consider. That even men should sit down when they pee, because apparently, like even if your toothbrush is like just 1 or 2 meters away from the toilet bowl or something, just by peeing into it, it can pick up certain air droplets of what comes out from the toilet bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's one thing that we mentioned it also on that podcast about how probably people's phones are fucking gross. But it's one of those things that I think maybe we don't spend enough time thinking about. Like we try and wash hands and all, but the splashback, right? There's a lot that happens lah. So I don't know. Maybe in future, all women and men's toilets will all have no urinals. It'll just be seated toilets. So the article was interesting because it just talks about the research around splashback lah.
Yeah, splashback.
Splashback.
Wow.
Splashback. Yeah. So I thought, yeah.
No, I was gonna say I'll admit that point that the Redditor made it was true lah. Like who looks at other people while using the urinal themselves lah, right?
Dude,
And
I'm not
realized,
looking.
okay, so Harish does that.
Okay, I'm not looking at them as I pee. If you walk past a urinal and you see someone using their phone, then you don't need to look at their lower half to know that they're only using one hand. Dude, see, this is where you all are trying to frame me as a fucking pervert. No. You can look at you can just glance at happen to see in your vicinity. Even when you're looking straight when peeing, you can tell that the person next to you is using their phone, right? Without looking. Right. It's not say unless they have 3 hands. I assume they are only using one hand to pee.
No, but I generally try to tunnel vision a little bit when peeing. Don't go and look at people.
Okay. You can consciously narrow your vision, is it? Your peripheral vision. You can consciously do that, is it? Don't give me the shit, Terrence. Don't give me the shit. Don't give me the shit.
If anything we learned from this podcast today, to not to just make sure you don't give people the wrong ideas. Don't ask children to suck your tongue. And don't look at other people while you're peeing in the urinal.
Dude, I'm not looking at you. This is a mischaracterization. Can I clarify? It's a mischaracterization. You can look straight and still notice that someone's using their phone on the side. Yeah, which is why I try to pee in cubicles if I can.
Oh, really? Interesting.
If I can. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're the guy that the urinals, the cubicles all empty, you will choose a cubicle.
I mean, if the cubicle is empty, yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. And then now you can say, because of splashback, that's why you don't want to use the
exactly.
Oh, smart, brilliant.
It's the splashback, man. It's the splashback, yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
Exactly, man. So the article was great,
but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but what about you, man?
Cool. My one Shiok thing is actually just over the weekend was the UFC 287 event. And it was a really fun, if you're into mixed martial arts and all, it's a very good event with a lot of good fights and everything. But I think what was the best part about it was the ending, when Israel Adesanya, the challenger who was, was the champion before but got knocked out by his big challenger. He came back and he defeated Alex Pereira, who has been like the kryptonite for him throughout his whole career. Even outside of mixed martial arts, when he was doing kickboxing. I think before Saturday, Israel Adesanya had lost twice in kickboxing to this same guy, and then lost once in mixed martial arts to this same guy as well, and lost his championship at the same time. So when he came back and he knocked out Alex Pereira at this time, at the end he gave a very interesting post-fight interview where he really said that he addressed the crowd saying, I hope everyone in their life, whatever you're doing behind the screen, even if you're using on your phone on a urinal or whatever you're doing on your phone screen, you will experience this happiness, this joy once in your life. But he will say that this joy, I'm paraphrasing, he says that this joy will never come if you don't challenge yourself. So I think that's the point where I was like, wow, the story of this knockout is more awesome than what the fight was itself. Because everyone knows he's a great fighter all that. But the truth is that he was basically knocked out by his kryptonite. The one guy who beaten him 3 times before, knocked him out twice before, So to really peel yourself off the ground and to come back, and a lot of people made fun of him. All the memes are coming out about him, and people saying he's cringy and all that. But he came and then he really put in the work and showed that he's willing to lay his everything on the line to pursue what he believes in. I think that's very inspirational. And yeah, that to me was like, that was the point I was won over to his side. Because originally I was like, I always thought he's like, oh, it's so cringy, the stuff he says and all. But watching this and the whole sequence of it was just like one of the best sports stories that I've seen in a while. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Because I mean, I saw the last part of the fight. It was against the tide, right? He was getting like hammered, and then he just caught the guy and then knocked him out.
Yeah.
Right.
Then he claimed he was playing possum and trying to lure the guy in and all. But I don't know how true that is. But it was a very tense, like the 1.5 rounds that occurred were very tense and very like it could go either way lah. But I think the whole narrative of having lost to someone 3 times before, and everyone just talking, and everyone on social media for the last few months were just like saying how it might be 4-0 lah. Basically, he will get knocked out one more time lah, because it was the last time was so he's been knocked out twice by this guy already. So a lot of people have said that maybe he should take some time away, then come back again and try, because there is something to losing to the same guy 3 times, right? That'll probably make you like reconsider, hey, am I really able to do this? But he immediately said, no, I want a rematch. And within 5 months, he came back and did it again. And he won very convincingly this time. So it was quite a beautiful moment that, it's one of those things maybe 10, 20 years down the road when revisiting it, it's one of the better stories in coming out of the whole mixed martial arts world in recent times. Given the tumultuous news recently, the whole power slap nonsense, Dana White slapping his wife, and then now WWE and UFC merging and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's good to know, because I only saw the last part. I saw his speech and I was like, oh, this guy's annoying.
Yeah, exactly.
So I took away very different thing from you, because I wasn't fully aware of the backstory.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's the great thing about like sports. Like if you really do follow the whole sequence, it can tell a very, very, very complete story. The whole arc of it is like almost like a movie, watching a Hollywood movie at it. Yeah.
Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Cool. Yes.
Cool. Okay, awesome. We back. And thanks for listening, everybody.
And no sucking on anyone's tongues, please.
Yes. No sucking on anyone's tongues. Bye-bye.